Now we're recording.
Okay, cool.
We
All
are
right.
live. Here I am with Dominic. We're gonna talk about speech styles between text and in person, etc., and other subjects that go along with it, like uh, eating, sleeping, like moods, etc.
Awesome. All right. Do you want to go first or do you want me to start?
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I think one of the main differences between speech and text is sort of what text is a bit more analytical in the sense, analytical in the sense of like it's more symbolic. Like you're dealing with text basically. You're not dealing with a face and body language and tone and all these different things, like all these different displays. So it's more stripped down and it's more reliant on you knowing the mechanics of the language and the sort of the colloquial or the idiolect, like the person's personal dialect, the manner in which they express themselves, and the habits, the diction, like the word choice, the ways they end their sentence, how they structure sentences. So it's more relied on those all those different features to get an idea of what's going on and to get a sense of what's going on with the person and what they're trying to convey. While it's also more because it's a bit more it's more limited. It's ironically more open to interpretation. While in real life, it's because there's a bit more freedom and more capacity to vary your voice, your inflection, your rate of speech, your body language, your facial expressions, things like that. There's a lot more richness to go around, but the interpretations can be more determined. Like you can hear sarcasm in a person's voice. You can also get more context for what something means. So yeah, that's what I think.
Right, there's a certain lack of intensity to it. It's kind of like cold, and I've even seen like some people in some forums, places here and there, talking about how like egotistical and kind of in your head it can be. And I know you were saying that it's that there are like mechanics to it. Like it's I was thinking like a perfect word for it would probably be mechanical or robotic at times.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, text is interesting in that regard, but it almost lends itself to uh because there's less controls. It's kind of like if you play a video game, like a video game where there are more controls, more buttons, there's more things you can do. But if you're limited to just a few buttons, you have to be more creative with how to express things. So the constraints give rise to more, like the tighter like there the more rules leads to more, I guess, more focus with the creative ways you can express yourself. So it's almost uh like if you're writing poetry or writing something like that. Like basically if you're writing, so you can get out certain, it's easier to, nah, I wouldn't say that. I guess I'm thinking that in real life there are still rules and there's still constraints, but because there's a lot more freedom and there are a lot more options, it's a lot easier to convey. You can always find different avenues to get at to express something. While with text, it's a bit more limited. It's more focused.
At the same time, there's usually like a kind of hints at expiration with the interaction in person. So with text, you can space things out. Like, say you texted someone like right before work, and then you hear from them at the end of their workday. So it's very spaced out sometimes, and it can vary as well.
Yeah, you're right. There is that temporal feature because real time, like face to face, is more immediate. It's more like now. It's more like what are you picking up in the moment, and it's more flowing. It's all more ongoing. While text, it's like you can. It's kind of like you can put like you're already at this pace style, and you can sort of freeze the conversation. And sometimes it's sort of like you know how you have those friends who you may not talk to for a while. Whenever you see them, you kind of continue on as if nothing happened, as if you never separated. So you can kind of have that more with text, where it's like you just kind of continue on as if the conversation didn't stop. Like you rarely read somebody being like, actually do sometimes read that. Somebody will be like, oh, I'm doing this right now, or I did this, or I just experienced this. But typically the person just responds to what you just put and continues the conversation. So the conversation tends to be more, I guess, focused. It's more contextualized within what you're going on about. While in real life, there's a sense of, because it's flowing and more immediate, almost anything can happen. It can go. It's easier to go different avenues. It's less constrained. Yeah, it's just it's like uh yeah, that's exactly it. Because in real life, there's a sense of like, I guess you can almost, it almost goes into the nature of, I guess, art and life. Because text is more of a, I guess, the different types of arts. Real life conversations more of like a performative art, kind of like dancing or like theater.
Hmm.
While text is more like, it's basically text. It's like poetry, writing songs, writing raps, writing novels, writing technical stuff. So the avenues, like there are things that you can type in text and be able to like pick up and understand in text, that in real life, if you kind of put it that way, it will require a lot more processing. Like
Hmm.
like some of my friends, like your brother Harry says, I'm easier to understand when I'm speaking than I am through text. Sometimes you can understand me better when I'm talking than you can understand me through what I write, even if I say the exact same thing. But because there's different emphasis and the phrasing is different, you can pick up like the different cues of meaning, like where something's supposed to be meaningful.
Hmm. Yeah, I think I can definitely agree with him on that. Way I see it is like, and this is just for anyone in general, I think, is the texting is kind of very exaggerated, and everyone has their kind of different styles. Some people just do a few words and really hate texting, and it's very brief, and some people have are kind of mid. I kind of put myself in this way. It kind of like explains things very quickly, but expands a bit. And then I think there's you and maybe other people that kind of like type a lot, and sometimes it's harder to break down that depending who you are. And as far as in person, there's like more of a there's more room for error because
Yeah, yeah,
there's more actions going on during the interaction and speaking to someone in person.
yeah. And it's interesting how, like, I guess there being more room for error, it sort of allows more room to breathe. It allows more room for what feels more lifelike. While with text, it's like you said, it's like it's more exaggerated at times. Like there's some people I talk to who put a lot of emojis, like they're always putting smiley faces or different facial expressions and stuff, or they'll put lots of exclamation marks. And sometimes to me, it just feels like put on, because I'm not usually the kind of person to put exclamation points unless I'm trying to make a particular impact theatrically. Like I'm very like meticulous with how I text to try to get something across. Most of the time, I'm just trying to like get across what's briefly passing through my mind to like get it out. But if I'm trying to make a particular emotional impact or trying to get a particular tone across, then I'll have to stylize it differently. Sometimes even spacing out how long I type something or how I structure something. So it's like you can put more. There's more thoughtfulness in text. That's why I said it's more analytical, in the sense like you can analyze more. You can like take longer time to take to figure out what somebody's saying, and you can also take more time to put more meaning into what you're saying.
Hmm. I think as far as my style goes, I think I try to like kind of go with the flow. I actually got caught like I think I told you about this. I had a friend say well, no need to force conversations. It's a lot of effort, you know. So I've kind of just been like, I've kind of been going with the flow more on that. I guess sometimes I catch myself being a little heady and like too like analytical too at times too, and yeah, it can kind of be a web, and people think you're coming up with some big lab experiments, and they're like, "Wait, where is this conversation going?"
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, like, because there's this in real time, there's this sense of like it's easy to keep a conversation going because there's this sort of like you can if it's not within the conversation, like within what you're saying or within the topic, you can pick something outside of you. Like you can pick the person's mannerism to go off of, or you can pick on what's in the environment, or you can pick on like there's more stimulation to go off of while to react and then bring into view for both of you. While with text, it's sort of like if you're going to bring that there, if you're going to bring what's in your environment or what's in you to the forefront, you have to shape it in a way so it can be received. You kind of have to funnel things through. You have to funnel things like in a way that makes it easier to take in, makes it easier to receive. So I get that whole like how like depending on who you're talking to, if the person doesn't type a lot, or if the person tends to end conversations, because they're also more like with text, you notice when the conversation stops more. Like it's easier to notice when the conversation is stopping. Like it's more apparent to you. While in real life, if the conversation is stopping, you can always just pick it up and take it somewhere else. Like it doesn't feel there's no I don't know how to explain it. Like I guess with text, because the conversation can stop, you might feel the need to like keep it going even if you have nothing to say. Or you might have to like insert a meme or I don't know, like take it somewhere else. I don't know how to explain it, but it almost feels less organic to do that with text. While in real life, it just feels like that's what you're supposed to do. That's how a conversation works. I don't know. It almost goes. It takes me into like, what's the nature of a conversation? You know, how do you have a conversation? And
Yeah, kind of like my kind of any jokes in person or something.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I
You're a
can
lot
get
funnier.
that, and some people even, like, shit post things and just talk a bunch of nonsense over text.
Yeah,
So there's total different styles.
yeah, yeah. It's very fascinating.
I'm thinking right now that, like, texting is kinda, like, classical. It's very straightforward,
Yeah, yeah,
linear, like, kind of perfectly planned, and, like, in person, it's like jazz. You have to
yeah,
improv. You're gonna find yourself having to take a turn when you don't know it. It's kind of like a jam session. You don't know what's gonna happen. You can't really plan it out, one by one like you can with texting. There's more room for error.
yeah. That's a very good way to put it. Yeah, that's a very good way to put it. And there is sort of like, and in a weird way, uh, depending on what you go for or what you like, something might feel more musical because it's structured. Like it might feel more like an interaction because it's structured through text, or it might feel more like an interaction because it's less structured. Like there's this weird interplay of like structure and I guess agency. That's what your brother has been harping on to me about since he's been watching these sociology videos. But he's been talking about how like structure and agency are kind of like dependent on each other and how they're very similar to each other. I can also put it as like order and chaos. Uh, like you have that with music, where it's like if a song is too structured, it might seem boring. It might be too predictable. If it's too repetitive, things like that. But if it's like it has like some dynamics, it has some phrasings, it has like different phases, different sections that do different things. It's more interesting. So if you mix these two together, you get a very interesting product. So in that regard, a conversation is a type of like music. There's a sort of music to conversation, whether you're texting or speaking in real life. And you can say there are almost different types of instruments or instrumentalists. when it comes to texting and real life. Because right now I'm being more of a I'm not a person who creates a lot of variation, like random variations. I tend to follow a theme. I'm more of a themer. Like I establish a theme and I go with it, and I'll keep working on that theme and I'll try to get as much as I can out of it. That's basically NI. Like you focus on one thing, and you get as much out of it. While NE will just be like, oh, I got this theme right here. Oh, let's try this theme right here. Oh, let's try this. So it's just like you can see how like even different temperaments of people can like go to different things when they are conversing.
Right. It's kind of like a bounce around versus zoom in on.
Yeah, pretty much. And even and you can tell they were both NI users in the sense of like despite because I've tried to branch out a few times, but it's like we still converge. We're still so focused on the same topic. We're still working on the same theme. Although right now we're weaving in MBTI and stuff like that. But so it's like you can tell like we still have a focus to what we're talking about and how we're going about things. While if we were talking to your brother Harry, he'd be like coming from different tangents or like he would have a connection he wants to make, but it'll start all the way from the beginning of where the connection was inspired from, and you'd be like, what is he talking about? What does this have to do with anything? And then eventually he'd get to the point and you're like, oh, that's what you were going for. So it just feels like you have to wait for him to like
Where's my mute button?
while for us it's kind of like we can start from something and then we can tunnel in and then we'll keep going, but it'll take us somewhere. And then like it's almost I almost want to put it as like for some conversations it's like the person is drawing from the past. They're drawing from a one main thing, and then they're branching off to different things, and then they're tracing all the things that they branched off from and how they fit with each other. While for other conversations it's more like you start from a lot of things, you focus on one thing, and then you elaborate on that one thing, and then you weave in different things that are possible or next to it. I don't know. This sounds very abstract, but you get what I'm saying.
Right. It's streamlined, but it's eccentric in a way.
Yeah, it's like Deleuze and Guattari. They're one's a philosopher, one's a Freudian psychiatrist. They both kind of broke away from Freud, and they introduced the concept of a rhizome. A rhizome is sort of like a heterarchy, which is like a web. Like NI is more like a tree where it's like you establish a seed, you plant a root, and then it grows and then it branches out. But it's all from one source. It's all from one main place, and it's all growing. So it's more linear, it's more structured and stacked on top of each other. While with the rhizome, whether you go up, down, or to the side, it's like a new connection. Like it's
omnidirectional.
Yeah, it's omnidirectional, and I almost want to say there's a omnitangential tangential. Is that how you pronounce it? Tangential? Like tangent, like a tangent that can come that you can go. You can tangent off.
I didn't know that was a word.
That's not a word. I'm making it up. Making it up. That's also the cool thing about words, man. You can always make up different phrases. You can make up different words to get across an idea. That's basically what you're doing whenever you're writing a song or poetry or even music.
I guess
it's funny how like you can do that easier. Yeah, you can do that more with music than you like. People are okay when you do that with music, but they're not that okay with it when you do that with words, unless they're like highly open or something like that and very creative. But it's like there's this guy who introduced me to a grammar book on YouTube. I think their name is XXX space XXXX, and I use the word transjective by John Vervaeke, which is like the meaning of subjective and objective. Like where they meet, where they both go beyond each other. Like it's not subjective or objective. It's like both of them together. And he didn't like that word because he's like, it's not in a dictionary. And I'm just like, yeah, but it's a useful word. It gets across the idea. But he's like, no, I refuse to use it. It's not in the dictionary, so no. And I was just like, that's really weird. Because in music, if somebody's like, if you wanted to make like a particular phrase or melody or get an idea across, you just do it. And it'd be like, well, this does not exist in popular music or something like that. But it's like, well, it sounds cool and you can fit it into the song, so why not have it? So you can do that with music, but with speaking, some people are more strict about it.
yeah, with music, there's like depending on the key, you could be on G flat or F sharp. It really depends what other chords are in there, or what scale you're focusing on. So I get what you mean there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. It's interesting, and I guess I want to keep playing on this theme of like conversation and music because I was listening to a conversation between Ian McKilchrist and Jordan B. Peterson, and they were both arguing like some people think like Richard Dawkins, or I think it was Richard Dawkins, or was it Steven Pinker, one of them, or maybe it was both of them, but they were like, music comes from speech. It's kind of like a carryover. It's like it's like a piece that's not very useful that just came from speech. And Jordan B. Peterson and Ian McKilchrist were saying actually it's the other way around. Speech came from music because birds do songs, other animals have calls and different sounds, and then you can like put in, I guess, uh, different junctions, different joints of interaction. As far as like if you add like the teeth and the tongue and open and closing and regulation of air, like if you add these different, uh, what do you want to call it? Presences of or presences of making things of cutting things short or clipping things or intercepting or shifting things. Like if you have these things that disrupt the sound, disrupt the music, then you get language. Like you get these different disruptors. I guess that's how I want to put it. Like if you think of that's what the tongue and the teeth do, and that's what your regulation of your air and your cadence. That's what it's all disrupting the sound. You can just make like we could imagine if we just sat here and we're like then you go like you go back and forth, and that's how we're communicating with each other. It'd be cool if we could actually understand each other like that, like you were just making one sound.
Yeah, there are some people that can understand each other like that. I mean, that's kind of how the tribes probably understood each other. I mean, they
Probably, yeah,
partied and chanted and stuff.
yeah. But even a chant has this feature of like you're chopping up the one vowel. I guess I'm talking in terms of vowels. Like if you just have one consistent vowel that's just ongoing, and you just you're they or maybe you can make a language out of just vowels or something, but they each exist at different durations. Like you say e, if you say e short, it's something bad. If you say e long, it's something good. If you say e high, it's something concrete. If you say e low, it's something abstract. Like there's ways to like get a language out of just vowels. If you guys
A
can
bunch of
just do it.
pirate songs and stonecutter songs just came to my head right now.
What would you do with a drunken sailor? But yeah, so yeah, my point is,
Wee-hoo. Your
so
point is,
huh?
your point is
Oh
gone.
yeah, oh yeah. My point is, uh, you can see speech language as a stylization of music, or you can see language or music as a stylization of language. And that's one of the things I tend to get stuck in with different things where it's just like I feel like you can start with maybe you have both being separate, but also like you can have shared similarities or different similarities or similar differences or similar similarities, different differences, or different permutations. I'll be like, what the hell did I just say? I don't fully understand what I just said, but I was getting across this sense of like uh, the different ways in which patterns can come together. Because when it comes to language and music, it's mainly about patterns. You're dealing with patterns. It's sort of like patterns in the most concrete and visceral way, like or put through a medium. Like with speech, like the pattern is through sound waves, through sound and frequencies, and you're disrupting it with the physiology of your body. Like you generate the sound and then you disrupt it, like you manipulate it with your tongue, your teeth, your rate, your mannerisms, and things like that. And like you get across a different phrasing, you get across a different type of music, a different sound to be understood and received. And you do the same thing with music. And dang, I lost it. Oh well.
Keys, rhythms, tonalities, etc.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So
yeah, and then there's some that there's frequencies, some that clash with others,
Yeah, dissonance. Yeah,
and opposites like lows with highs,
yeah, yeah,
etc.
yeah,
Mids with mids.
yeah, yeah. And
Yeah, yeah.
it's fascinating that you can say there are all these. You can call them elements, elements of sound, elements of speech, elements of music, where what you just described, because it's like I feel like when people are talking about patterns, when people are talking about reality or their lives or themselves, they don't bring in all the elements. They don't bring in all the elements that they're familiar with to describe it or to talk about it or to think about it. They just latch on a few. Like there's so many times people will talk and they'll just latch on one metaphor or one image or one sound or one word or whatever. And I'm like, life is so rich. It's full of all of these, and they're all interacting with each other, and they're all distracting each other, and they're all pulling away from each other, and they're all opposing each other, and they're all happening simultaneously with each other, and they're all happening levels with each other, and they're all happening in different stylizations with each other, and so on and so on. And it's just fascinating to like get across that richness. Yeah, and it's something I'm hyper aware of now because and it's come from uh increasing my musical and linguistic and conceptual and experiential vocabulary, or increasing the range of notes I know, the different key signatures, the different time signatures, the different timbres for the different instruments that I become aware of as a person as far as how to experience the world and experience myself in conversations and music and with other people. And that's kind of what it's given me.
It's a very simultaneous juggle of the physical realities and then our in our head realities mixed with the kind of frequencies between groups and their egos, and whether it clashes or whether it synchronizes.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that is what I've been doing because I feel like to get at if you want to use if you think of the whole like different types of holes, but if you want to use like what I talked about in my truth schema video, truth metaphors, like if you think of a mosaic or like a picture, so it's just like I'm taking, or even a painting, I'm taking all these different features that are like colors or paintings, and I mix them together to get a particular image to depict as realistically or as almost as accurately or mirror-wise something that mirrors the situation of the topic or the situation of the affair I'm describing as best as possible. And that includes like taking into account other people, how they work, how I work, how the world works. And it's like I'm trying to lay it all out because I feel like that gets me as close as possible to accuracy. That gets me as close as possible to being realistic. That also gets me as close as possible to being, in a weird way, fantastic or surreal. Because there's this sort of like, to like get at what's real, you almost have to be surreal. You almost have to be more, go beyond. Like there's this weird sense of like, to get at what's directly, like all the stuff that's directly in front of you, how you get it, to put it into another medium, you have to come at it indirectly. Like to paint accurately, like exactly like your room or like your own portrait, you'd have to get a bunch of indirect colors and mix them together to like get the direct colors that you perceive as just that way, depend how you look at it. At the same time, the closer, the better your perception becomes, the better you're able to look at stuff and take things in, the more you're able to see all those indirect colors. Like, like, like if you look at our shirts, we're wearing different types of red, but even within our reds, like there are different shades, like depending where you're looking, like this is slightly different from this, slightly different from that, and so on and so on and so on. And some of them are similar, but it's like depending on how the light and the shadow interact, like you're getting different tones, different, yeah, you're getting different tones, and that'd be very hard to capture. And the better your perception gets, the more you're able to pick up these tones. And it's the same with music too. You can hear it with sounds, and it's the same with language. That's why I like to tie it back to our conversation about speech and music. It's like the more you get to know somebody, the more you're aware of the details that comprise them. So it's like if there's a shift in how they're texting, you can tell there's something going on. It's like, are you okay? Like sometimes you'll ask me that, like we'll be texting and you're like, are you okay? Are you mad at me or whatnot? And it's like, to me, I didn't feel like I changed that much. Maybe I was busy. I had to like text really fast and I had to leave. or I didn't know what to say, or I'm feeling kind of whatever. So it's like you pick that up and you're like, there's something different about what he's presenting because you're aware of the details that comprise me. And so I just find that interesting.
Right, right. Moods can kind of fluctuate and different responsibilities and just like different jugglings.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. So it's just like, I guess if you think of it as like the left and the right hemisphere too, what I just said about the details, because you can't look at something in detail and look at something as a whole at the same time. You have to kind of alternate between them, alternate between zooming in and zooming out, alternate between part and whole, alternate between fluidity and form, alternate between intensity and extension, alternate between these different. I don't even want to give a word to it because it's like there's no word that comprises it. You almost want to, I guess you want to say totality, all the difference and the sameness of totality, like the thing and everything and the every and everything that makes it what it is. Like if you want to get at all that, then it's like you have to. uh yeah, I lost what I was saying.
Rip.
But yeah, so that's one of the things that's interesting. Also, I feel like I'm talking too much, so that's why I'm trying to cut it short because I'm just like I feel like I'm over talking you, which is interesting. That's also another thing too. Text and speech, like how people interact. Like there's always like there are different dynamics because some people will say a lot, other people will say less. Like there are conversations with some of my friends who they talk the most and I listen the most. Others I talk the most, they listen the most. Others we talk about the same amount. So it's just interesting.
I
So
think I pick up a lot more stimulation when talking. So like that ADHD makes it just like
uh
I
what do you
I
mean?
I'm like constantly trying to focus a lot more, and then I'm also trying to kind of like chill myself out and kind of like listen to key points. And I'm like, oh wait, I forget. Also, just working out and coming from work also makes me a little
Yeah.
yeah. Um yeah.
I mean, I also naturally have a lot more energy than you do. So there's that too. Like you're a lot more chill than I am. I'm pretty chill too, but it's easier for me to get like a lot of energy, like just get like, yeah, just start going. Even though I feel inhibited, I still feel like I have like this, like where I'm going, I can build momentum basically. Like the more longer I go, the more energy I'm able to get. It's like it's kind of like even if you don't watch Dragon Ball Super or read Dragon Ball Super, like there's this character, Vegeta.
Haven't really watched Dragon Ball.
Okay, well, there's this character named Vegeta. He has a new form, and with this form, the more damage he takes, the stronger he gets. While the main character Goku, his is like Ultra Instinct, which like allows him to like move without thinking. Like he's like pure instinct, pure flow, pure adaptation. So those are also different ways of characterizing conversation or characterizing patterns. Where some people are more spontaneous and more fluid and more like the more reactive, and the more they're reacting to, the better they do, and the more they're moving, the better they do. Other people are more like they're more receptive, and the more they receive, the more they're able to generate on the inside to output. So I don't know. Every like honestly, I like to put it. This is probably one of the main things I can honestly say. Like all givens are patterns. Like people like there are people who say we're pattern seeking, but I don't think. But we're not just pattern seeking. We're also pattern making. We're pattern enjoying. We're pattern using. We're partaking. We participate in patterns. We so that's basically what like conversations and music are kind of like, where it's just like you're seeking music, you're enjoying music, you're partaking in music, you're making music, things like that.
Right. Yeah, it also depends on what flows, what isn't flowing, and it's also kind of like it's like mixing too. It's like, does this go in the mix, or does this go up here? Does it go down here? Or is it getting lost in here? Is it getting muddy here, etc.?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, definitely. There's a feature of allocation or order or positioning. Like, like I guess if you look at it in terms of like the order dimension of this, order kind of like to get a particular style or a particular depiction or aesthetic uh almost because a lot of our words that we have for expressing things are very visual based. We don't have a lot of terms that are very sound based if you think about it, and even less so for like smell. But
Right, right.
we have it for visual and touch, a lot for visual and touch, like for like touch, impact, vibration, cut, hot, cold. You know, like these different dimensions of like touch, and then the rest is like visual. So it's like hard to come up with like a medium that is multi-sensory that captures like the multi-sensory nature of our experience. So it's almost like if you could have a word for that, you would just be calling that reality. Like if you just said like it's almost like, and it'd feel kind of redundant to be like, well, we have a reality that represents reality, you know. But it's like, but it's kind of like you have uh, a reality within a reality, or like kind of like those Russian dolls, the Matryoshkas. I think that's what they're called, where it's like one tiny doll uh, image underneath another doll and underneath another doll and so on. You keep taking it off, and that's kind of how we can like be like in reality with each other and with these patterns. And that's kind of how conversations can be like too, where it's like some conversations will become very layered, whether in text or in
Mhm.
person. It becomes even more layered in person, but in text, sometimes it's easier, ironically, to miss the subtext or to like that's one of the things that makes reading interesting or what people or when people try to transfer sound or speech or whatever into text. Like you're Irish, right? So we probably haven't
Mm,
read James Joyce, but in his Finnegan's Wake, one of the things he does is he almost transcribes music, the musicality of language, into text. So, but he does it through puns and through allusions and through omnidirectional, like it's a rhizome, omnidirectional connections and associations with a structure and a set of phases and stuff to like give it a particular order. Like he'll do something like say, like he'll like you'll read something that's like a word and onomatopoeia, like saccharine, so saccharine blue, but it's like then you think sacre bleu, like French. Then you think sacre, sacred. And you think blue, heaven, like breath. You think air, breath, heaven. And then you think sacred, breath, holy, spirit, because spirit is breath. So you'll be thinking Holy Spirit. So it's like he creates like these cascades and networks of like associations just from a word and an onomatopoeia. And like by breaking words down into their different monemes, like there are different parts, there are different syllables, there are different units of sound, and there are different aggregates of phrases that you can get. Like one of my favorite phrases I remember, I think I'm pronouncing it wrong, but I think I remember it wrong, but I always liked it. But it's like his mama muscles most mysterious. Finnegan's Wake is a fascinating work, but his mama muscles most mysterious. I don't know what it means, but it just sounded cool to me. So so sometimes it's like that with a conversation or even music, where it's like there are things you'll take to. Like this is the enjoyment part of it. Like depending on what's your orientation towards it, where you might just simply take to the pattern or take to the conversation because you enjoy it, or you may take the conversation because it's useful, or you may take the conversation because it inspires you to make your own conversations in the future, or things like that. So yeah,
yeah, yeah, he kind of does it playfully in a sense, but with some kind of order, hinting at things.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's fascinating, and yeah. Oh, we're at 39 minutes. Awesome. If this was Zoom, it would have ended by now.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. I mean, do you want to end it soon, or do you think you can?
Uh, yeah, maybe in the next 5, I guess.
Okay, cool.
I want too long of a video.
True, true. But yeah, but yeah, this has been an interesting conversation, and you said some interesting things to me. Like I was like, yeah, when I watch this over, I'm definitely gonna be like, yeah, that was a very good point. Like you made me think of the order and chaos, like the yin yang, and the different elements of elements that comprise a pattern or comprise a conversation or music, from like high
Mhm.
to low, opposition, harmony, simultaneity, disjunction. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up
Good, good.
because I think uh, that may be what characterizes why we're able to still keep having conversations. Because you think that at some point, because sometimes I used to feel like this. Sometimes I get very bored where I'm just like, what's the point of talking to anyone? What's the point of doing anything? Like it's all been done. It's so boring. Like sure, there can be new forms. Like the cell phone didn't exist like 100 years ago and things like that. Like some computers may have been invented by the Greeks or whatnot, but they weren't the computers that we have now. Things like that. So it's like sure there are new forms, there are new remixes, new combinations, new structures of things, but it just feels like if you look at it fundamentally, it's just like, well, it's all fundamentally just this. So it's nothing novel. It's nothing new. It's all been done. It's all boring. But it's like at the same time, you can think of it like that, but you can also reorient and do an aspect shift and see it as like actually it's constantly new. Like if you read the Bible, the teacher says in Ecclesiastes, he's like, "There's nothing new under the sun. Everything's been done." Basically, that's kind of what he's getting at, and nothing satisfies. Like there's life is a satisfaction, and uh, in the end, all you can do is just obey God and just live your life. That's basically what he concludes. But it's like, but it's like even the sun is new. It's constantly being renewed. It's like it's not the same sun it was a second ago, and so on and so on. So if you look at it at a micro level, like depending on the level you look at it, everything is changing. The patterns aren't always staying the same.
Right.
So there's
All the planets are organisms.
yeah, in a sense, yeah, you can almost think of it like that. Like I think Alfred North Whitehead would agree with you there, where he thinks of reality more as an organism than as a mere mechanism or merely mechanical. And that's also one of the contrasts that's there too, the mechanical and the organic. So I just find it fascinating that there are these different how do I want to put it? Characterizing attitudes, characterizing characterizations, these different renderings, these different framings of a topic or a situation to make you think or experience it in a different way, or experience it in a similar way, or experience it in a different way than other differences, or a similar way from other similarities, and so on and so on. And on the complexity goes, and life is ongoing, and it's so rich, and it's just fascinating. Yeah. I like
Yeah,
how
there was probably some universes that are existing in our timeline that are ones that we cannot communicate with, or they're not on our same wavelength, and there's probably ones that have died in the past, and maybe they did some things different from us that we've never seen.
yeah. Yeah.
That's the hope, at least.
I wouldn't be surprised if there were other universes. Most likely that has happened. Yeah, I wouldn't
We
be
just
surprised.
have to dive into Futurama again.
Yeah, Futurama was great.
There was also this game I played called Star Ocean. Has different planets too.
Nice, nice.
Yeah, too bad we can't communicate with other planets or like other universes.
Who knows? Maybe, or maybe
There used to be life on Mars, right?
me. I have no idea. I don't know much cosmology. I only know enough about like things like the first. Like there's this book called the first. What's it called? The first 3 minutes after the Big
Yeah.
Bang or something. But things like that. Like I just know things like how did particles form. Like the mythology behind that, like the mythology that outlines how these things came to be and how they unfolded. But I can no longer recall it. I don't have the same mind I used to. So almost all the information I used to know is gone. I can't access most of the things I know. So that's why I'm kind of left with just a few elements that I improvise from, and a few core concepts, core understandings that I have that I've retained that I use to navigate and get through topics. But yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's interesting. We started from the differences between text and conversation and went all the way into the universe.
Yeah, we went into the universe. I guess that's where deleted texts go, right? Yeah, they go into the universe. Man, well, I guess that's good. I think that's good for now.
Yeah.
Well, I'll do a little channel wrap up here. Everyone, this is Dominic. I'll link his channel in the description. I'm Wailing Gita. I hope you enjoyed our conversation here about text and speech and the universe and all that, music, etc. Um, Tuning out.
Peace.
Peace.